Hello and welcome to another one of my All Nation Line videos. Today I'd like to get into the topic of helping model railroaders ease their way into scratch building. One of the tools we have today, which we didn't have many years ago, was the development of software to help us in our model building processes. So today's video is about a digital twin. Now, the definition of a digital twin is a digital replica of a physical entity. And that digital twin right here in the CAD program that we're going to talk about today is the Atlantic Coastline Whopper Hopper car. A unique piece, one of a kind, made out of stainless steel with a capacity of 135 ton. It has other uncommon features such as an automatic wash system that was installed by the Pullman Standard Company when they manufactured the car. The purpose of developing a model based on research, of course, drawings, photos, and doing so in the CAD program, like the photo here you see behind me, is to be able to generate those parts of the model on a 3D printer for the purpose of mock-up. So really what you're after is developing the patterns, templates, stencils maybe, to make the development of your scratch building more accurate, faster, and less prone to making mistakes along the process of creating the parts and final assembly. Now, you can go about this by using a variety of materials, whether you want to take a low-cost route and try to develop a car using cardstock, wood, various plastics that you could utilize, like styrene perhaps. But in our case today, we're going to talk about building a scratch-built ACL hopper car out of brass. So the first thing we'll talk a little bit about is some of the brass stock you'll need to start this model. Typically, what you're going to do is to be looking for some sheet brass. Sometimes they call it shim brass, and I like to go with a 0.01 thickness or a 0.02 thickness. The 0.2 I like for using as the flooring for flat cars, or even in this case a hopper car. Gives you a little more body and strength. And then I'll use the thinner 0.01 for sides, car ends, whatever other components that are required. Sometimes you'll find just sheet brass that you can use, and something like this is very handy because when you start creating the parts and 3D printing them from your digital model, take for instance the buttress of a car end, you can lay that on the brass, put some bluing on your brass, and take your scribe and actually scribe line work in there where you need to cut. Now, some of the brass that you're going to get is going to come in in rolls or sheets like this. You find these out on eBay. Here's a much larger roll, wider width. This was about, I don't know, 100 inches long. It's a good starting point if you're going to create the sides of this particular car. So what you'll need is probably some tin snips, because very likely you're not going to have a shear to be able to make the cuts. I'm just lucky enough to have a shear in the shop here. It makes life a little easier. And you're going to want to be sure that when you scribe, to double check your measurements and make sure things are square. So, what is the purpose of a digital replica? Well, the first thing you can do is lay out your basic parts. And you can do that right here from your CAD program by showing what the sides look like. You can basically see the ends, the slope ends, the vertical ends, the floor, the roof, and you'll have a very good idea what you'll be encountering when you want to just make the basic parts to get you started. Don't worry about the detail, that comes later. So what is handy about having the plastic parts from 3D printing is once you have them cut out and ready to a certain extent to start assembling, you will find that you want to start creating your digital replica. And this digital replica, there's no need to go any further than this. You don't need to detail the replica. You're just trying to get the basic superstructure and make sure such things as your ribs across the side of your car are spaced correctly. The roof profile, you would want to check and make sure where your roof ribs fall, where your hopper bay openings will be on your roof, where your partitions are in the car, and of course this gives you an option as to whether or not you want the roof to come off if you're going to do a little detail work inside the car. You want to get a real good idea on the underside, and that is your channel and framing, where your bolsters end up. And of course this is a very large car and requires trucks that have 6 wheels on each truck on 3 axles, and was originally, those trucks were made by American steel foundries. So this is a mock-up that's pretty far along, and there's an opportunity at that stage as you develop using the plastic mock-up parts from your 3D printing to think about order of process, order of assembly of parts, and you'll discover there's more optimal ways to do it before you start soldering things up in brass or gluing up your styrene model or your cardstock model if you're going to go that route. So what we've decided to do to help modelers make the transition from just simply building kits to entering into the realm of scratch building is to provide a kit with all of the parts from 3D printing this digital twin and jumpstart the process of your scratch building project on this model. We'll provide the detailed drawings of the digital model, and we'll have, of course, screenshots of this particular car so that you have points of reference when you go to work toward assembling the various components. The detail that you will add will come later, and you do need to be thinking about various things like thicknesses. So when you go to make your buttresses, for example, for the car ends, there's probably more than one way to skin a cat when you're working in brass to make those and soldering them up. You will note that on the parts that we'll supply, whether they're just ribs or the rib cutouts on the side for being able to describe your various parts, our wall thicknesses on the mock-up are about 1.25 millimeters in thickness. Well, your brass is going to be a lot thinner, and so while this is approximately 64 millimeters in width, it will be slightly less, of course. So there's that component to think about. So when we did the mapping of the actual model to two-dimensional blueprints, which we'll provide with the kit, you'll notice that maybe some of the metrics are not perfectly accurate, which may be a function of this software's ability to map from a three-dimensional to a two-dimensional. And I have it set up where it rounds the number, doesn't take it out to 5 digits. Really not that necessary. But when you get the parts, you'll notice very subtle things like the distance of the ribs is a little wider as they go across here between the two middle hopper bays. It's hard to see, but it's obvious that we had to account for that based on drawings that we had and photographs, and there's plenty of photographic references out on the internet for a modeler to look at and to really get into the detail once you're done. Now this kit, the modeler will also, even if they don't want to scratch build using these parts, you can put a fully developed model together just from the parts that we have in the kit and go ahead and finish it out as a plastic model. It's very close to what the prototype was, and you'll have to be thinking about how you want to paint the model. And again, this is where mock-up comes in handy, I think, because you may decide to change the order of your superstructure construction or assembly process to accommodate priming perhaps, or painting. Now this car was also had SCL lettering on it at one time, and I suppose when ACL and SCL merged, SCL of course put their paint and lettering on it. I think the original stainless steel was left unpainted except for the ribs, which is the character of the car. It almost looks like a cage, but the unusual size of the car itself, the trucks, the end platforms, makes for a very unique piece on the model railroad layout in O scale. I hope you enjoyed this video, and perhaps as we talk more about this car in the future, especially with other model builders, we'll have some tips and tricks for developing this and show you some of the maybe even shortcuts, because we learn from a digital twin.